Hello. Today I'm going to talk about a few different things. First, I'm going to talk about the modulus project and some changes I've been making with that. I've got TradingView loaded, XRP, and I have the ADX indicator loaded. First, let me start with, because of some growing concerns with TradingView's limitations on indicator functionality, I have decided to go ahead and make sure each and every indicator has its own signals and will produce its own signals, so it can be used at the beginning of the chain or at the end of the chain. This is important particularly for the lower subscription sizes where you're only allowed one indicator on indicator. So I wanted to make sure not to waste any of the functionality. So there will not be an alert system, as each indicator is capable of delivering the alerts for you. Now I want to talk about some changes I made with the ADX. I have added a length modifier and a threshold modifier and an aggression modifier to the ADX indicator. Now these three components also apply to the confirmation line. So let's take this up here. These two are pretty easy to figure out based upon the ADX specifications, but the aggression modifier isn't. And I just turn it on and you see that it ramps up the signals considerably. This is not necessarily something you want to use by itself, but rather in combination with something like MACD, where it can be difficult to get the signals to align. So let's come down here to MACD. Let's go through its setup. First, let's turn off the signal line. I know this is a pain, but if I turn it off from within the script, it stops the functionality. So turn on the chart. Now, we're going to use ADX signal line. So I'm going to use the ADX signal line. I'm going to tell it yes. And now you have lineups a little bit easier. The reason this functionality is implemented within the ADX is specifically because MACD is difficult to tune and it doesn't always have an easy way to count candlesticks to hold on to the signal. I'm still trying to get that so that I can do that on top of this, but in the meantime, this is a nice way to be able to at least provide some functionality on that level to increase your signals. Now you don't have to necessarily do it the way I did it. For example, we can turn this off. MACD will revert back to its normal functionality, and we can incorporate MACD into, I gotta disable this. You have to disable this by default because TradingView knows, and it will keep you from creating circular references. So here's the MACD signal line. and yes, we want to use it. Now, the reason I'm just demonstrating this is because, as you can see, there's a difference in the order of the way things are displayed. So sometimes you might have to look at your charts and flip how the chain looks, which component becomes first versus second. So when you're looking at your setups, be sure you take that into account. Sometimes a particular indicator might do better if it's placed before another indicator. So you want to be able to keep that in mind as you're working. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and clear this off for now, because I'm going to go through and talk about the second part now. And that is some experiments I've been running with 3C and running some paper bots, particularly after the little dip on Thursday. It's pretty noticeable, but I want to go through and talk about individual bots, individual setups, and things necessary to actually be able to hedge against the market, including a couple of unusual experiments I've been running. So I'm going to open up all of these bots, and now we're going to go through. This is my BTC savings account, basically driven by PSAR, nothing else. As you can see, slow, steady, quiet, it does well. Maximum balance 1,111 USDT. Straight, simple, linear safety orders with 100% of the volume. This is my fail-safe approach. If you want to stay in a market and you want to try to weather out everything, this is where you go. So let's go to the next bot. This one took a beating. As you can see, it's doing a recovery. I don't have a lot of safety orders on this one, only 10. So my stop loss triggered at 11% when things really went south. As you can see, stop loss profit. If you can't cover your volume 100%, use a stop loss. Otherwise, it will get much worse. So let's close this one out and go to this one. This is just driven by Trend Hunter, or now the ADX module. Nothing else, very simple, very sweet. Same thing, one buy signal, and there it goes. Now I do use a sell signal on this one just in case. But for the most part, as you can see, pretty straightforward. Nothing special about this. Same basic safety precaution that I use, but I do have a very simple approach. I do use a sell signal and I use a trailing take profit, just in case. That way I can try to catch as much profit as I can. And as you can see, it really does pretty decent considering. $3 just within one day. $2.98. So don't be afraid to use a trailing take profit and sell by strategy, meaning you using the selling alerts as well. The combination does work well depending upon what you're trying to achieve. And now we get to my unusual bots. This one actually uses BTC as a base currency. This one is using my fail-safe approach. 100 safety orders, about 11 USDT for both the base order and the safety order. Standard take profit from my fail-safe approach, and you'll notice it's doing a lot of activity. But the one thing you'll notice, it hasn't made any profit yet. It's been sitting here for 11 safety orders. So 11 safety orders and going nowhere fast. But it's accumulating and it's doing well. So when it does finally sell off, it's going to give a very generous amount. But again, this is the fail-safe approach. This is riding a roller coaster with two of the biggest coins tied to each other. But you have a safety harness, you have the 5-point seat belt, you have the bar in front of you, you have body armor, and you have a helmet on. It's not going to move very quickly. But when it does finally sell off, it will give a very nice profit. Now, let's go look at its counterpart. Where this one has 100 safety orders, this one has no safety orders, none. Instead, it places 100 different trades. It's exactly identical to the previous spot, but no safety orders. It's already made a profit, whereas the other one is still accumulating. But there's a dark side to this spot, a very dark side. Here are the profits per day, not bad. Shows you nothing but pure profits all the way through. But when we come down here, it has 57 open orders. That means over half of its possible trades are now stuck in a negative position, where at some point I'm going to have to reckon with these. All of these orders are below zero at one point or another. And I'm going to go into the deals page now and show you that. So you really want to be careful, but you still want to look at the possibilities. And the other thing I want to emphasize, every single one of those bots uses no more than $1,200, every single one of them. So you're looking at roughly less than $6,000 to run all of them simultaneously. Okay, so let's come up here. Let's filter out some of the nonsense. And let's go to the aggressive accumulation. I want to show you what those orders look like. Let's get this out of the way so we get more screen space. Now, let's take a look at these. So far, everything looks nice. Nothing too steep or overly out of control. Okay, let's get to the bottom of this. Starting to get a little bit out there, but let's go to the last page. Okay, take a look at these percentages. Sooner or later, I'm going to have to figure out what to do with this. There's no stop loss on this, so it could recover. There's no dollar cost averaging on this. I could manually add funds to it to try to turn it around. But as you can see, this will have to be reckoned with at some point, and that is going to affect the profit of this bot. So that is something to be aware of when you're looking at different options. Be sure to test these options, because this bot produced profits right away. The accumulation bot still has not produced any profits. It is still sitting there collecting. In fact, let's bring that up and see the one and only order it is sitting on. Actually, it cleared out the order. Alright, that's it first. I'm going to have to go find that in the deals. Find out when it cleared out the order. So let's go in the deals. First, let's look at the aggressive, and you'll see the deals. Pretty good, really. The aggressive bot does well. So as long as you have a game plan to deal with those positions that don't sell off, it can really do a pretty good job. Now you can combine this with dollar cost averaging, meaning you can attach safety orders, like maybe 10 safety orders each, but then this bot would take $10,000. So that's something to be aware of when you're working. Okay, so let's find out. Okay, no, so it's still in place somewhere. It's still on the deals page, so we're going to have to go try to find that. But let's look at the other bots while we're here. Okay, Trend Hunter, 13 deals. So far it's made $4.99. Not earth-shattering. It's not going to get you very far with just one single coin, but it's a good starting point. It's a good way to find out if you've got a working step. And it's just a nice little bot to keep running even when you want to run something more advanced, because it's going to accumulate. Okay, let's go to the BTC one. This is the advanced one. It took a hit with the stop losses. More safety orders might help it, and it probably will help it, because as you can see, it really does do a good job. And it has a really good way of picking a good entry point. So if you was to take this up to the 100% safety orders, it would be as good as the savings account bot that I'm going to show you next. Of course, here's the stop losses. So forth, some losses there. Not bad, pretty good. And this is with a sell strategy only, no percentages. Now let's go to the basic blueprint that I'm using both here and with real money. Since I've started this, it's made $46. Again, this is only using the PSAR to drive the buying. Everything else is done with the safety orders. And as you can see quite a few times, it doesn't even use a safety order. Sometimes it does, but for the most part, they're very quiet. So this does a good job for getting in and out, and it's really simple. So if you're looking for just a simple accumulator, this approach works well. Now let's go see if I can find the ETH BTC accumulator bot. Go to my deals. Let's find that deal. Here it is. Right now it's 7% below, and it's completed 11 safety orders. And I did one manually. Now remember, not only are you dealing with the volatility of BTC, but you're dealing with the volatility of ETH at the same time. This is an unusual little situation. And when this thing does turn around, it will have a very nice little windfall profit. So that's something to be aware of, but you do have to watch your balance in your account because the base currency BTC will fluctuate drastically. I put this one together specifically seeing what would happen when the halvings came. So once that does and the split takes place, it's going to be interesting to see if this pumps crazy on both sides. Meaning, will I get a double profit out of this? Am I going to get a profit because BTC pumped and because ETH pumped? Or am I going to get a profit just based upon ETH pumping? So this is a bit of an unusual bot here. I consider this an accumulator bot because it will accumulate BTC over time. And that may be something you want if you're looking for BTC as a general practice. So as you're looking to develop your different trading paradigms, be sure you experiment with your paper account. You might come across some interesting things that you didn't think about before. Okay, now let's go to my real money account. Yes, this is real money. Actual real money. I don't have anything in it because I actually sold off this morning. And I just got to figure out where I put it. I made a whole whopping 8 cents this morning. I'll probably have to go to the bots. Yep, here it is. My actual profit. One deal so far. Not going anywhere fast. But I'm happy with it. It did better than I expected it would. Now, what makes this bot stand out? I don't have 100% coverage at 1%. This is all I can afford right now with this bot. 60 safety orders. So let's go in here and take a look at how I set this up. If you can't make the 100% volume at 1% deviation, try to get as close as you can, which is what I did. Okay, I did 60 safety orders at 1.66% deviation. As I add more funds to it, I'll be able to lower the deviation. But I wanted to get as close to 100% coverage as I could. This is how you do it. And sometimes it means just playing with the numbers to make sure you've got these settings. So let's go back to the previous page. Said it's only been running a few days, but it's made its first profit. It's not earth-shattering, but it's good considering the way the market's been doing. I actually started this before the drop. So it's actually quite remarkable how well it's working. So you want to be able to keep track of all of the details. Let's see, when did this start? 5/11 is when I started this, and this deal took a little bit over a day. Not bad, not bad at all. But that's some of the stuff that I've been working with in testing Jackrabbit. Different combinations for different market situations. Not every market is going to work with the standard approach. But one thing is for certain, the fail-safe approach will always be a good starting point. Always. So as you work, always start with a fail-safe approach and go from there. So you see MACD here working away. Let's get rid of this. And let's go back to ADX. Simple signal line, nothing special. Oops, don't want that. I know it was probably a tease. Maybe I'll leave it in the video. Okay, let's show the chart. Now let's do something complex here. We got a MACD signal. Let's do, okay, we're on XRP. Let's go to the 5-minute chart. There we go. Now let's compare against the Binance order book. And let's go with BTC with the base currency of USDT. We want confirmation bias. And we're going to leave everything else alone. Okay, so there we are. Nice and simple. Okay. The scale's a little bit scrambled up here, so we'll have to shrink it some. If we can shrink it, it's being stubborn. There we go. So we see that there. We see confirmation bias. Now let's do a little bit further. Let's come up here. Let's compare this one against ETH. For the record, I have no idea what's going to happen. This may or may not work out well. Okay, we're going to leave the time frame alone. 5 minutes. Now, let's feed ADX into MACD. So, we're going to go to the signal line for ADX. We're going to say yes. And now we're going to see what we get. Did this work well or not? No signals, so no, it did not work well. Let's try the other way around. Let's reset MACD. Remember, you have to disconnect them. Okay, so now let's try ADX. We'll take in the signal line. We'll connect it. Okay, so no signal here. Well, next step. Let's turn on the aggressive mode. Now let's see if we get a signal. And so, as you can see, some combinations aren't going to produce. But I'm not done yet. I want to try one more thing. I want to see if maybe this will pick up from the other side. Again, remember, this is some of the things you have to do. The order of your combinations does matter. So here's the aggressive settings. We may not get anything, again we might get a hit. And no hits. It's a near miss. There are things, of course, you can continue to do, such as adjusting the various widths. For example, let's drop our threshold to 20. Now we'll give it a few seconds to kick in. And normally ADX has a length of 25. I use 23 because it seems to work better in some cases. Let's go ahead and realign it to 25. Well, we got a cell signal right here that lined up. And that got us out right before the drop. So let's see if we can find a buy signal. A lot of interesting stuff here. Now I use confirmation bias on ADX and confirmation bias on MACD. You may not want to do that with what you have in mind for your approach. Now let me bring up the command menu. So far as you can see, this doesn't really show much activity. Here we go, a buy signal. It's slow, but it does work. So that buy signal took place at roughly 18.7. Let's go back to the sell signal and see if it was a profit. Okay. Find the bar. Well, yeah, it was definitely a profit. 21.5, thereabouts. So that brought up a nice little tidy profit just for that combination. Not overly fast, but that's a nice little profit. So always play with your combinations to see which way things will work out best for you between the two of them. Always paper trade it first. And when it comes to the paper trader, don't be afraid to try experiments. You never know what you might come across, including a combination that does unusually well. Until next time.